Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Base Live. I'm Paige McFeely, CEO and co-founder here at Base, and I'm so excited to introduce our featured guest and friend, Lindsay Robinson.
Hi, Paige. So nice to see you again.
Hello. For those of you that don't know Lindsay from our Empower 2020 Summit, Lindsay currently serves as leading executive assistant at LinkedIn and is Rock Your Profile ambassador and New York City's site lead. So she's got a lot going on her plate. As more than a 20-year veteran executive assistant, her passion comes from solution seeking and helping people. So in today's discussion, we're going to be talking all about channeling your inner leader. If you're tired of trying to be the master of all trades, well, we have good news. You don't have to be. So in today's world, there is so much pressure to be the best at everything. And sometimes, or most of the time, we get overwhelmed. I know that I certainly do.
For sure.
And so we're going to talk about all the things today. To kick things off, Lindsay, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm super excited to be here. It's funny, I think after I posted kind of what I was going to be speaking about, I told you guys earlier, like my conversations over the last week have been solely focused on this topic. It's something I'm super passionate about. Newly learned, I will admit that. As an EA, I think we always, it's part of an unspoken rule that we are kind of a Jane of all trades, if you will, or a jack of all trades, but it's impossible. And so I've stopped trying, but excited to hear what the community thinks and put my spin on it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we're so excited. And it's something that we've been talking a lot about at Base this year, really channeling and honoring the inner leader within all of us.
Yeah.
And for me personally, that often means fending off that pesky imposter syndrome. So I imagine we'll get to that today. But wherever you're coming from, I really believe that this mindset is crucial for advancing each and every one of our professional careers and in feeling fulfilled in our personal life. We can do both of those things, even though they sometimes feel at odds. So as Lindsay and I kick off the conversation, we would love to hear from everybody joining us today within the comments. What does channeling your inner leader look like for you? So drop those in the comments. Lindsay and I are going to have a conversation kind of about all of the various aspects of this, and then we're going to make sure to save a good bit of time at the end for Q&A. So drop in your questions there, and we'll get to those at the end as much as we can. So, okay, thanks everybody. We are still at the start of the new year. And so I don't know if you're like me, Lindsay, but you're still kind of thinking about the New Year's resolutions and maybe iterating on them a little bit. But there's a big focus, especially given the year that we just came out of, on how can we take care of ourselves this year, but also help us to grow. So have you done any self-evaluation so far this year, or carrying over from last year when it comes to your role, how you're progressing towards your goals, your mindset, all of those sorts of things?
Yeah. So I have a little bit of a controversial view, like mindset on this. And for me, I like to think of things as lifestyle choices, right? Rather than, because I think with the resolutions, it's great to have these kind of lofty goals, but if you don't take the the hourly, daily, weekly, monthly steps to get there, then it puts so much pressure on you. To be able to really achieve them, right? So yes, I always have things I'm working toward, but I don't really set these like huge goals at any one time. I mean, with the exception of like, okay, yeah, I had to run a marathon and I needed, like I needed a training plan, but those are a little more achievable because you have a finite date, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, when I think about kind of leadership and being in my sort of role, it can go so many different ways, right? So just to share with everyone, at the end of last year, my boss told me that he was going on to what we call his next play. So he's going on to another role, and of course I'm like devastated, only because we had a great relationship. He's the one that brought me in. I knew exactly what I was getting with him, and I had no idea what the future held. So, it did give me a chance to think about, okay, with him transitioning, what do I want my future here, both at LinkedIn and in general in life, my immediate life, to think about or to look like. And so I think it's better to think about, take your consistent daily steps to get to a place before rather, setting those huge bucket list, lofty goals, because it tends to be a little bit more achievable, especially, in the world in which we're living in today. Like, you literally don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So take it step by step. And I think it just takes a little bit of the anxiety away from kind of the decision making of it all.
Yeah. And I think that's really getting to a growth mindset versus a results mindset rather than saying, I'm going to transform into this end result at this point in time. This is the series of steps that I'm going to take to get there. And so instead of saying, I'm failing at being that end thing, what's my next right step? What's the next thing that I'm going to do? Without really ever vocalizing it, I think that we're pretty aligned in that. And a lot of the time, what we'll end up doing, my husband and I, is sort of settling on a theme for the year. So it might be a word like hospitality or something like that, where we want to be better neighbors. We want to get to know our community. That was actually our word last year, which then of course we saw nobody. So
Exactly.
totally backfired. But sometimes it's on like, purposefully saying no and not adding to our plate unless it's something that we choose to do. And usually that is a little bit more fluid of what success looks like. So much of it is what is the desire that I'm putting behind this and why am I putting it behind this versus the end result. So I love that.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what some other people are thinking here, because I think that we're going to get away from that. Like, completely change my body in this year or stop eating this type of thing or get that promotion. It's very binary.
I also think, as I prepped for this, I was trying to think of, I just basically looked up the word leader and then did a dark hole of everything that came after. And one of the things that I read, which really stuck with me, and I guess is something I've always lived, but I struggle with because imposter syndrome, is comparison is the thief of joy. Right. And I think we're so used to setting ourselves up to see what the next person is doing, or, what someone above you is doing or next to you is doing, because that's how we say, I'm using my little finger quotes over here, but that's how we say, we're striving for excellence. It's like, oh, I'm going to put myself up against excellence. And so I can climb that ladder to get there. But I think we all have, I saw in the chat, do we even have an inner leader? I think we all have it, right? But it's going to look different for every single person. And you just have to be okay with that. And I think if the ambition is there to want to lead in some capacity, again, the definition was commands a group of people, and so it's as simple as that. If you can command a group of people, you are a leader, right? And so that comparison, though, we have to be very careful of that, especially today, because you literally have no idea what's going on. I mean, you're in my living room, and it's pretty chill, but you have no idea what's going on in people's homes today. And we have to be extra kind of gracious, because what they were able to do last year or even yesterday, they may not be able to do tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I've heard it described as an ego wall, where we all have it, and you get to decide, are you going to let that wall stop you? Or are you going to climb it? Are you going to peek what's on the other side? Because leadership can take so many different forms. It doesn't necessarily mean you're in charge of a team. There are so many different ways to lead and inspire growth in others, which is one of the things that I often think of as leaders. So I really like that.
That's absolutely right. I think you look up leader, you make an assumption about, or you ask people about leaders, and it's people who have been appointed to a certain position because, for one reason or another. In every organization and in every group, it's going to be one thing or another. In your high school group, it's like, who has the best hair? Where today, obviously, it's a little more formative than that. But I think you have to define what a leader looks like for you. Right. And then that's the sort of person that you want to aspire to be or be like, or work toward. And I think as we're seeing, especially today, leaders look very different, than they ever have before. I mean, we have a woman vice president, a Black and Asian woman vice president. And you look at what's going on with Amanda Gorman, right? Gorman, I believe her last name is, right now, and how, she's kind of just being herself and putting her, she was able to put herself out there and landed a platform and now is using that platform to, go to heights probably unthought of prior to that. So,
I had a good chuckle. Sorry to jump in. I had a really good chuckle that she's going to be the first poet to perform at a Super Bowl this weekend.
It's crazy. It's
fantastic.
Crazy. She's 22, right?
Yeah.
Like, she has so much more to do, but she put herself out there. And I think that's one of the things that I want to make sure that everybody leaves with today is that, many of us have been conditioned to be behind the scenes. And what I've started realizing and obviously I work for LinkedIn and I'm going to promote our platform, but it has really been a place where I've been able to show more sides of myself, both what I call work adjacent. If anybody's taken my Rock Your Profile, I call work adjacent, which are all the things that prepare me for work, in addition to the actual work that I do, right? But I share a ton about what I'm doing, what I feel, who I am. And there's a huge level of vulnerability there. And I think the best leaders that we have really do share a lot of themselves without kind of, the thought of I'm going to get attacked or I'm going to feel some sort of way. So it is going to require some sharing of yourself and who you are to be put up on to be put on a platform, because platforms aren't always here. Sometimes they're behind a desk.
Right.
So think about that.
That's actually a perfect transition to the next thing that I want to talk to you about. I saw that you posted recently on LinkedIn. I'm going to read this quote here. I choose to be a master of few, but I'm willing to improve the things I haven't mastered. The important note here is that I'm okay telling you where I can improve without fear of judgment. That's getting at that vulnerability that you're talking about and the willingness to share. And that's actually one of the things that I've struggled with a lot as a leader. Is that I'm comfortable sharing. So where's that line? Where do you find that balance where you can still project? You still want to be somebody that people want to follow and then they want to fall behind, but also realize that you're human and you don't have all of those answers. So can you inspire those around you while still being human and saying, but I need your help too. That's why we're all in this together. And I think that is a really, really important journey, not even a result to end at, but a journey for all of us, no matter where we are in our career, no matter what we're doing as a role. So can you talk to me a little bit about that mindset? I know it's all related as part of this larger story, but what's that journey been like for you?
I think, I'm 43, not at all shy about my age, because every year I feel like I garner more confidence in being exactly who I am. I happen to work for an organization who also supports that and encourages that. However, it's got to come from within, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many of us have so many varied skills that I think sometimes, we don't give ourselves enough credit to really shine. Again, I think it comes from, I'm going to say two things. One, as a woman, and I know much of our field, it's changing, and I'm grateful for that, and cannot wait to see what that brings and how it changes things. But as women, many of us are taught to, nurture, right? Moms, wives, aunties, from their very early age, we're taught to take care of. And I absolutely love that as a human being. Like I am a person who takes care of others. I do that in my personal life. I love doing that at work. That's what I'm known for. People used to call me Mama Bear and all of these things. But it's a slippery slope because you can also be taken advantage of in that regard, right? So you have to be very careful about doing so much of that and bringing so much of that side of yourself to the table that people forget. Hey, I also have a brain. I'm an event planner. I'm an HR person. I'm a travel agent. Like I'm all of these, a calendar ninja, like whatever it is that you call yourself. You have to make sure that there's equal parts of yourself, so people can see the whole human being and not just kind of place you in this box. However, I'll use my last job prior to LinkedIn to talk about kind of the being able to say no, or I don't know. At the end of the day, we're human beings, right?
Right.
Like, I think my boss used to be like, I don't know, all the time. And we would all giggle and laugh and then run off and figure it out, whatever he didn't know. So I think, he was comfortable enough saying it because he knew he surrounded himself with people who would get him the answer and hop to it, which is what we all do. But I
Yeah.
think we can do the same thing, right? Like you mentioned earlier about, me being, an EA at LinkedIn. We have the most amazing community of EAs at LinkedIn. And literally, you will drop a question in the Teams chat, and 5 seconds later, you'll have an answer. Actually, you have like 15 answers.
So
And so I
powerful.
think, and I think it's about surrounding yourself with people who are both of like mind and maybe not, to both give you the answers or help you achieve the answers, but then also, challenge you on things that you may know to be true. The world is a really fast moving place, and it's huge. I tell people all the time, like, the LinkedIn helps you shrink the world a bit. But with our 722 plus million members, but there's a big world out there, and I think that there are a lot of tools and ways that you can expand your networks. I know, we're always talking about networking and that sort of thing, but you've got to take a little bit of a human approach sometimes and say, like, I don't know. I can go figure it out, but I need 10 minutes, or I need an hour, I need a day. But it's about setting those boundaries as well with the people that you're working for, and not trying to be this, I know everything all the time and I have nothing else on my plate and everybody's busy and it's fine. Like, we've got to get rid of all of those things and just present ourselves as, I am who I am.
Yeah.
These are the things I'm great at. Literally in my interview, I said, do I need to do PowerPoint? Because I actually suck at that. Like, I'm the worst. It is my kryptonite. Everybody knows this about me. And in the last 2 years, I've gotten better. I still suck. So if anybody wants to help me with PowerPoint, I'm willing to learn. But literally, they just don't ask me. Like,
Yeah.
there's 10,000 other things I'm amazing at, right? Like, I suck at PowerPoint. Why are you going to force me to do this?
Mhm.
So I think it's just sometimes about being like, I don't know,
Yeah.
but having the ambition to go out and seek it. That's the important part, because, no might not be the right answer. And you've got to have someone who is, who is compassionate. And I've been lucky to have amazingly compassionate managers and people around me, their support staff, their leads, who are always like, what do you need? Because nobody ever asks us that. We're always
Yeah.
asking everyone else. So sometimes it's just like, hey, before they even reach out to me, I need this.
Mhm.
I don't understand the business. I understand the people, but that's a challenge I think we go through as well.
And, was there this is gonna be a hard question to answer, but do you feel like there was a moment or an experience or a role even that really helped you to realize that inherent strength that you had and that there's real power in acknowledging those weaknesses too? Because I've been in interviews where people say, "You wanna hire me for this, you don't wanna hire me for this," and boy, do I love that. It's really, really great. But there's a process to get to that point, I think.
Yeah, I think time, age, and experience.
Mhm.
It's going to be different for each individual, and I think that's a good thing, right? Like, there are some of the EAs in our org who are, right out of school, and I'm like, holy crap! Like, how do you know all this stuff, right? They know, um, they already know LinkedIn process and protocol, but then they're also bringing all of these other things in with them. And it's like, you just got out of school. How did you do all your schoolwork and, garner all of this really amazing experience, or information? But I also think, it's about, again, surrounding yourself with different people. I'm a huge podcast listener, so I turn my TV off, during the day, and I just listen to podcasts or music, depending on what I need to do. Not PowerPoint, but but I think, you've got to insulate yourself with other things, right? Like, it can't, every day, all day, can't be about the job, kids. You've got to have some things that fortify you. Especially today, because you know, for example, I'm planning an offsite, right? Like we all do this. I plan an all hands. We wanted a guest. And so it's like, you know, I have all this podcast knowledge of all these people that talk about the things we're talking about internally every single day. But they're like, how do you know all these people? I'm like, I don't know. They're guests on these podcasts I listen to, you know, but I'm not just listening to like, you know, EA podcasts or work related podcasts. Like yesterday was Armchair Expert with Dak Shepard. Like I heard about him on another podcast, you know? So it's
It's so
like,
good.
you know, oh my God, so good. And he was doing Justin Timberlake. That one was so great. Sorry, sidebar.
Yeah,
But,
I need to watch.
you know, spread yourself out
Mhm.
because, you know, when you are asked, you do need to be on, you know? And so when
Mhm.
they asked me, I was like, oh, I got 1,000 ideas, you know, that I just listened to the CEO on our podcast, which I'll plug, which is amazing. Hello Monday with Jesse Hempel, who I used to stalk in the elevator. I'm a little bit crazy. But she'd be like, you again, Lindsay? I just want to come in the studio. But she had the CEO of Home Depot on there, and she was talking about how she came out of retirement and, you know, just kind of reorged everything. But where did she start? She got a whiteboard. She got some, you know, red, green, and yellow stickers, and said, "Let's put all of our initiatives on here, and I want you to sticker them. And anything that's red, we're not dealing with anymore." You know, and it didn't matter. She as a leader like was like, this is what it is, you know.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you just have to make a decision and stick with it. And we'll all get there, but when you see how other people operate, you're like, oh, I could do that. That was a great
Yeah.
idea. So you do some form of it.
Mhm. Um, I wanna make sure we have enough time, but I would love to hear some of your podcast
Oh
recommendations. You've mentioned a couple,
yeah,
but any podcasts or books or anything that you're reading that's outside of our bubble that we're in right now, because there's some clear winners there, but
yeah.
what's broader than that?
I think it's always adjacent, right? Like I spend a lot of time
Yeah.
on my work adjacent. I am single. I don't have children. And so, you know, I try not to waste time. Anybody who will talk to who knows me is like, you are always moving, you are always going, but like that's who I am and that's, you know, what I enjoy. The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker is a book. She also has like a
That book
newsletter
changed
and
my life.
it's so good.
It's
Like
so
and
good.
so everything is so simple, like especially today. And we happen to have her again as a guest, you know, on a program that we did, but she was amazing. Again, Armchair Expert, they're so real on that podcast. You know, my tried and true are like the Daily and Today Explained because I'm
Mhm.
not a news watcher, but I need to know this information just to have like intelligent conversations. Love The Leader Assistant by Jeremy Burroughs. I mean, that's just like a staple because I love
Mhm.
our community and trying to understand who in our community is doing like amazing things. I've met so many people through that one. Brene Brown, you know, both of hers are really, really good. I would have to go into some more. I want to say it's like
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
18, 19. I want to say it was like God, I can't even. I'm like trying to sneak and look on my phone. Oh, wait, no. The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes.
I don't know that one.
Oh, so good. I just talked about him the other day, and then he started following me. I was like, oh, look at I'm a celebrity. Yeah, no, I'm
Yes,
definitely
you
not. But
are.
he talks again to other people about just like things that they're known for, or that you know that he feels are great. I just also love the title.
Mhm.
Rich Roll, I really love also. He's more like fitness oriented. He and the
Yeah.
Nike Trained podcasts are two of my go-tos. I'm, you know, fitness buff, love my Peloton, former marathoner, cyclist, runner.
Mhm.
And so a lot of that is prep for me, you know, like how
Mhm.
you keep your body together because not built like a runner, not built like a cyclist, 43 years old. So, you know, probably not a lot of years ahead of me. But and then our two podcasts I like live and die by, Hello Monday and This Is Working. This Is Working is the one with Dan Roth, who's our editor in chief. Absolutely love those because again, it's like work. But they had Wyclef Jean on the other day, and he was just talking about like you know his life and how his life is his work, and he's just so passionate about music and bringing people you know, to the table who may otherwise not have a chance. Like, it was just super inspiring to me. I could go on for days, so let me stop.
No, I know there's some really, really good ones in there
Yeah,
too. I love that. And I also find whenever I do step out of my tunnel vision of these are the things I need to accomplish and this is my little bubble that I'm in,
yeah.
that's when I really find growth. That's when I really have interesting ideas if I can just step away from it. I know that this doesn't fit with every role, but gosh, my assistant Natalie would know, but probably 6 months, maybe even closer to a year ago now, I started taking Thursdays to do a step back, where
Ooh,
it doesn't always happen, but in a perfect scenario, I'm not on my computer until the afternoon, and I take the morning and I'll go for a walk, or I'll do something not at all work related just to kind of relax the brain, and then I ask myself the same few questions, and I write my responses on paper, which
imagine
forces
that.
me to right. Forces me to go so much more slowly. Turns out I can't write very fast compared to how fast I can type. And it's been my poor team knows from experience now where every once in a while I'll just have this light bulb go off and then it's like, you know, fire drill. Like, I've got this idea. We all need to work on it. So they're probably like, oh, she had another step back. But it's been so valuable for me to just step outside of the tunnel vision, I think.
Yeah.
And I encourage other people to do that. If you can protect, it doesn't have to be the full day, but if you can protect a space of time where you can allow your brain to think and relax, look at trees. I know I sound crazy saying that, but I swear
Nope,
it's so
not
important.
today.
Leaves, look at trees.
I'm like looking at, 2 feet of snow right now. So, but
Yeah.
I said I'm going to get outside and I'm going to walk around in this. Why? Because I'm going to be in the house every other day. But
Yeah.
LinkedIn has started. The culture there is just so unparalleled. Like, they started giving us no meeting Fridays. You know, and it is so hard for people to not meet. Like, it is insane. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, why is this so hard? We tether our worth to work, right? And that's the way that we've become. I was talking to a colleague in Dublin today, and she was like, "Oh no, the Europeans, like, they have hard and fast, deadlines, or like, excuse me, stop points." Um, I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're right." Like, everyone but the US does it so much better than us. Like,
Mhm.
hard stop, absolutely no. And we're like, oh, like, offended. And I think it's because we tether so much of our worth to, like, if I'm not succeeding or doing, which comes back to this Jane of all trade thing. And when somebody called me that, what did they call me? Girl Friday. I was like, what? Was that an insult? Like,
Explain
what is
yourself.
that? What does that
Yeah.
mean? But he basically was like giving me a compliment. But to me, I was like, I don't want to be that. Like, I don't want to be everything to everybody, right? Because that's not my choice. That's not what I'm choosing to do. So, when I was able to talk about this, and some people are horrified, right? Because when you tether yourself to work, and you don't think you're succeeding there, maybe that's the thought process. What else do you have? But there's so many other things. Like, I say, like, one platform is for fitness. LinkedIn is a little bit of a mashup of everything,
Mhm.
but it has brought me so many other kind of additional things to enhance my life that makes me a better employee, frankly, for work. And every time I come back from a day off, a no meeting Friday, shoot, an afternoon free, um, I feel I'm ready. I'm like ready to get there, but it's this, we've got to put up some boundaries, for ourselves and the people that we support, because it's actually our whole job. But my peers have helped me with this, and frankly, the EAs at LinkedIn are like, "Why are you working? You're supposed to be off." And I'm like, "Oh God."
Yeah.
Like, I am
Yeah.
by a pool, but, like, all right, fine, I'll turn off.
Right. Yeah. I do really respect my peers that have those hard and fast boundaries, and then the ones that can clearly communicate them,
Yeah,
because I think that then they value their roles and their responsibilities, and startup world for us. I think that we're pretty flexible and we've got a good environment. We all work crazy hours,
flexible.
meaning
Be
that we
careful,
never
that word. Yeah, that word is
we
tricky.
never don't work. But I have a cutoff at 5. period. I have to relieve my childcare. This is a hard and fast rule for me. And I can't tell you the amount of guilt that I have felt. So many of my team members are still working at 5 and I've got to step away. And that was a really big struggle for me early on. And now it's like, okay, hey, I can acknowledge that I'm feeling this guilt or frustration or whatever, that I have to move away from my computer now, and then just leave it there, leave it at my computer and move on. And I know not all of us have amazing cultures like LinkedIn with built-in communities of assistants and supportive managers and all of these things. But I think there are still a lot of ways that we can create those boundaries for ourselves, protect our brain space in concentrated pockets, if that's all we're doing and it's not protected all throughout our day.
Yeah.
Any other tips that you would give for those of us that are not in this really supportive environment?
Yeah. One, reevaluate the environment. There are a lot of opportunities out there, way more than, again, I've been in EA or some form of EA for almost 24 years now. There weren't as many roles. I mean, you can look at LinkedIn, you can look at any platform. There are so many roles, even in this pandemic, that you could potentially start looking toward to better line up with who you are as an individual and your goals as an employee, right? Because I think many of us think we're stuck wherever we are because, we talked about the older community, and I think the older community and the younger community have the same challenge, right? It's like, where do they really fit in? But I think that there are so many companies now realizing the worth that we bring to the table that maybe hadn't been as expressed in the past. But I'd say that's one. I'm not encouraging anybody to go quit their job. Like, I did not say that. Like, that did not happen.
Disclaimer made.
Yes, but what I am saying is reevaluate what you bring to the table and what you're receiving back, right? Because this should not be a one-way street. We can't just give and give and give and not feel like it's being reciprocated. So that's one. Platforms like this, like, go to every chat, get on LinkedIn, there's many other platforms. I belong to also a group called Organizers, and it's literally just a thread of like people looking for things or looking to, not things, but resources. Again, I mentioned Jeremy Burroughs. Like, we have some amazing leaders who are really stepping up to the plate and saying, hey, I'm going to actually make this my job. Paige, you were, an assistant at one time. And so this platform that you're giving, it's like really coming from the horse's mouth, like you're showing those who you can engage with to get the sort of reinforcement that maybe you're not getting at a current position. I think, and then internally, even if you don't have a huge group of EAs, there's ways to get community from those around you, right? Like, but again, it's going to be a little bit of putting yourself out there. One of the questions is like, how do you show leadership, being new to a team? And I'm sure a lot of us are going through that. I'm dealing with that, myself right now, but I've just decided to be me, right? and it's a little bit of a risk, I'm a lot to handle for many. But I try to just, use my humor, use my genuine care for both the community and the job and the people, and move from there, right? But kind of look around and see what you do have, and that's going to be sometimes, sometimes I'm like, oh, this is tiring. Like, I'm always having to do everything, but on some level, you sign up for that,
Right.
But it's one of those hard questions where it's like, you don't want to steer people down the wrong path. And I feel like, Lindsay said this. Well, no, I didn't. But I think we are all gems in our own way, right? And, I look around my team sometimes and I'm like, wow, like, they're doing some really amazing things. Or I look in these chats and I'm like, wait, I'm sorry, you sent food to 75 people in 17 different countries? Like, what? Right. Like, how did you, huh? You ran a passport to somebody's private jet. Like, literally, these are the conversations that are happening at like 2:00 in the morning. I'm like, oh no, like, that's too old for that. But it happens. And so we all bring really amazing things to the table. I think these sorts of conversations have to start with like, you're not just a person behind a desk or a body behind a desk doing things. We're not robots. We're humans with feelings, morals, goals, families, dogs, cats,
Right.
all the same. So, treat yourself as a human first. And again, that puts on that cheesy, literally today, put your mask on first. Different mask, but same.
Yeah.
And you have to take care of you first, right? To be able to then give out. So it's a little bit of the reverse engineer, but you get
Yeah. I think that so many people, everybody wants to feel seen and heard. So in order to feel valued in our roles, we want to feel seen and heard. Our executives want that from us as well. And so whether we're new on a team or we're trying to step into a new space or add more to our plate within the bounds of our role or professional life, we all just want to feel seen and heard. And I think that's one of the best ways to show yourself as a leader is to show you can understand other people and see them and hear them and value them as a human. And it's hard. There are people out there who are just curmudgeons and they're not going to respond to that. But most of us will. It's hard not to. It's hard not to respond back in that same way.
I always say, I'm not coming to your party. Like, I'm not coming to this curmudgeon party. I'm going to be outside when you're ready,
Right.
But again, like, everyone's not, you're not going to be everything to everybody, right? Like, there's some people who they're going to have that wall or whatever, and that's okay. Who you need to focus on. My mom and I have this fight all the time. She's always trying to like get people to her side. And I'm like, stop wasting your energy doing that. Let's focus on, let's focus on those who are kind of halfway there. And then you can bring them on a little bit. If you have to go all the way to the end of the street and drag people along, the only person that's going to be exhausted is you, because they're still going to be like stuck in the mud,
Yeah, totally. We have this children's book, and it's a really useful analogy. I'm going to share it, even though it's a children's book. It's about, it's called Have You Filled a Bucket Today? And it's about this idea that everybody carries around this invisible bucket. And when your bucket is full, that's when you feel good about yourself and you feel happy and you feel positive emotions. And if your bucket is empty, that's when you feel sad, obviously. And so sometimes with people with empty buckets might try to dip in other people's buckets and steal from them, but you can't do that because it also empties your bucket. And this analogy has woven its way into the fabric of my children's lives. And it's something that I think about all of the time in a professional setting too, of like, yes, like that's a bucket dipper, and I don't want anything to do with them. So I'm gonna keep my bucket over here.
Don't be surprised if that like ends up in a LinkedIn post.
Yeah, do it. It's so good. Okay, well, we're going to wrap up in a couple minutes, but there are a handful of questions that I want to get to quickly. So if anybody else has more questions, drop them in the comments. I think we've gotten to a lot of them already, but there were a couple that were sent in advance that I want to make sure to ask. How can you still be seen as a valuable EA when you're 55 plus years of age? Many talks and seminars and events seem to be focused on younger demographic, which is one that we've talked on here as well. Work is still important and valuable at all ages. So how can we help people shine? So I think we've kind of already touched on it, but we'd love to hear your thoughts.
No, I think again, what anybody with a lot of years of experience bring to the table is just that, right? Like when my boss interviewed me, he couldn't ask me obviously how old I was, but he was like, how many years have you done this? How many years have you done that? And he wanted someone who he didn't have to kind of micromanage, and that would come in with a certain level of comfortability and direction, right? Because that's what happens. So I think if you're 55 plus, you have to release the age restriction and increase the experience that you're bringing to the table with everything that you've done. And to my PowerPoint point, you can't be afraid of technology and what you don't know, right? Because we can all learn. Like that's a given, that's an absolute. But there are going to be some challenges in that. Hey, I'm not, people want me to come in and be like a social master. I'm not on certain platforms just because I'm not, right? Like it's not what I choose to be. And I didn't know, that it was part of my job. But, when we were in the office, one was that. Oh, did you see what blah, blah, blah said on Twitter? No. What did they say? Like I just happened, that's not a platform I happen to be on. I'm not on TikTok. Like and with no, nothing wrong with them. There are a lot of great information on there. I think spread it out. But for that generation, and I'm not that far from that, you can't be afraid of what you don't know. It's just about digging in and kind of figuring out, okay, I don't know this. How can I garner that information? And how long is it going to take me? Who can I take to dinner and teach me how to do it? Because listen, again, everybody wants to feel seen, and this whole let me pick your brain stuff, we got to be done with that. Like, you've got to be able to form relationships around resources rather than just asking and expecting to receive. And I tell people all the time, connect with a ton of people on LinkedIn, but send a note. Like, you're a stranger, right? So you wouldn't just walk up to somebody and start talking to them. It's the same equivalent. So use your manners. We all have them, and just go forth.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that a lot. And we've heard from a lot of folks who are overwhelmed, which I find myself feeling that way with some of the newer technologies
Every
that
day.
are just, like I have no desire to stay on top of the latest and greatest things that are out there right now, but I do need to have a certain aptitude for technology. And so I think if you can get to that comfort level with whatever tools you deem necessary to do your job well, then you can really, really lean on that experience. And just like we talked about early in our conversation, here's what I'm really, really good at. And here are the things you don't want to hire me to do. And that's okay.
And we all are surrounded by people who do all of these things every day, so just talk to those people and spend a little bit of extra time. I always tell people, like, don't kind of half step it. You're either going to do the work on the front end or the back end. So, like, you can make your choice, but you can't avoid the work.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Let me just scan. I think we've gotten most of those questions. One final question for you. Where do you find the biggest differences are in working at a huge tech company like LinkedIn versus a non-tech company?
I think, tech companies are a little bit like keeping up with the Joneses. So, if one's doing something, then we reap the benefits, of that. And so I think that's, in terms of culture, that's where we really win, right? Because it's like, if you hear, and I'm not going to name any names because I don't want to get in trouble, but if you hear one person is doing it, one campus is doing this, like, oh, should we be doing that? And then they send out a survey. We're like, heck yeah, you should be doing that. We want, cookies every day too. Or we want, no meeting Fridays or whatever. But I think, honestly, there's been a shift in thought process, right? And it's again, back to this, I can't be everywhere doing everything all the time. So how do we work smarter, not harder? It's such a cliched, mess today, but I think it's our jobs at tech companies make it easier because they are bookended by culture, and community, and give us not just the lip service, like it's an actual thing. Like, people have OKRs against it, and it's put into our strategies of things. When you don't have that, I think you can be part of helping to create that. And so, utilizing some of us who do have these things. I have a colleague in London, who, we're trying to get some initiatives passed, and she's done it for her company because she shared it on a similar platform. And so I just reached out to her and I was like, listen, this is what we're trying to do. Would you be open to sharing some of the things that have worked for you all? So I could bring it back to my leadership team and say, listen, these are the things I've been thinking about. It's worked here, not how can we institute some, not all of the things that are there. But, I think, again, it's surrounding yourself with resources, and not just, it's hard to ask somebody for something the minute you need it, right? So it's like, build your community organically, to the best of your ability. And there are a ton of ways to do that in tools, and we'll have to have a whole nother chat on that. Hint, hint, LinkedIn. But, but it really is about, making sure that you have people around to help you. We're one person, one brain. If people say 24 hours, I'm like, who's working 24 hours? I'm working 8 hours. Like, that's all. I want to shut off at 5 too. All right, like maybe 8.5, 9, but still, I'm single, right? But yeah, you need help. You have to say you need help, and then you have to follow up on that help, because a lot of people be like, yeah, and then are ghost, right? It's like, what happened? I thought we were gonna. But you also have to offer something, right? So again, I tell people, when you reach out to folks, offer up what you can do for them, and then also, ask what you need for yourself, because nobody wants to be, people want to be seen, like you said. So
you
want to be used, because there's a lot of that going on in our profession, because it's just our job, right? You don't want to add to that.
Yeah, the amount of LinkedIn messages I get about that too. Can't imagine how many you get.
But listen, I want to help, right?
Right.
But literally, people are asking me for like, oh, hey, can you give me a premium? I'm like, who are you? I don't even know you. You get a pass if you're an EA, but still, I'm still going to check you if like you say something wild, because we all have to exert manners, and there still is an etiquette to networking. I have a whole article on it. I didn't write it, but I reposted it. It's still necessary. And again, no one wants to be, feel used or anything like that. So don't be that. Don't be that person.
Yes. Okay. I think that we are about out of time here, and I see one question just came through. Will you email us the list of podcast resources? Yes, we can definitely do that.
I can send you the list.
Yeah,
we can definitely do that.
Yeah, we can include that, and then if there are some that you didn't mention, let us know, and we'll be sure to include that in the follow-up. This has been such an interesting conversation, and you have dropped some really amazing gems in here. And we're so grateful to count you as a friend of BASE. And thanks for joining us today.
Of course. I love what you guys are doing. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I have to be careful. Yes, humans. Start with humans. Again, anyone who, is here, like, make sure that you're not only engaged, but you're sharing. You're sharing. We all have to continue to share our resources and share those around us who can benefit from all of these amazing things. Like, no one wants to be home all the time, but I think being home allows us to engage a little bit more in both these sorts of conversations, but also just, figuring out the time to make, where I would have never been able to do this in the office. So grateful you included me.
Yes, absolutely. Anytime. You are welcome here. And thank you to everybody who joined us today. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you all again next time.
Thanks, Paige.